So when I think of American Pickle, I relate it kind of like the movie Yesterday. You know, remember that Beatles movie Yesterday, the one with the really interesting concept that ended up being incredibly boring and not funny? Yeah, exactly. So in American Pickle stars Seth Rogen and Seth Rogen. He plays both characters, kind of like Tom Hardy in Legend, except this one's just not good and that one was. But it follows a pickle worker 100 years ago that fell into a vat of pickle juice. The factory ended up closing randomly and it got sealed up, and he was stuck in there for 100 years until all of a sudden one day a bunch of kids unearthed him and he was alive and, you know, perfectly preserved because of the pickle juice.
Has been condemned.
After all that's explained, and we move on from that, which is actually very, very quickly, that would have been a much more interesting concept to explore than anything in this movie explored. He finds his only living relative, Ben Greenbaum. So Ben and Herschel end up living together. Ben shows Herschel all these interesting things around the city and all these interesting things about being in the 100-year future. And they end up really hating each other because Herschel thinks that Ben is just a screw-up and doesn't care about anything, doesn't care about family. So he goes out and he starts selling pickles from jars and cucumbers that he found in the dumpster, and ends up becoming like a millionaire. And that's basically the movie.
Artisanal pickles.
Well, he's not on Yelp.
Sir, how local is your produce?
I make pickle here in Brooklyn.
And are they all natural?
It's pickle.
But do you add any chemicals like, benzoates or preservatives?
I do not even know this word.
Oh, also Ben is working on this app called BoopBot, which tells you if products you're using are made by like not shitty people or something, I guess. I don't know. To be honest, I watched this movie 3 weeks ago and it is incredibly difficult for me to remember anything. Now what you might be saying is, Bailey, maybe you should just rewatch the movie so it's fresh in your head. No, fuck you. I'm not rewatching this movie. There are 100 better things to watch, and this movie is just mind-blowingly underwhelming. But I have to make a video of it because it's mind-blowingly underwhelming. Now, before I get too far into this, I should let you know off the bat that I am a huge fan of Seth Rogen. I watched this movie because it had Seth Rogen in it and nothing more. Yeah, the concept was interesting, but it was Seth Rogen that drew me in. I'm a huge fan of almost all of his movies. I truly believe he is one of the great comedic actors of our time and will leave on a legacy that people will enjoy for years and years and years to come. His movies Knocked Up and Long Shot are two of my all-time favorite movies that I have watched probably dozens of times apiece, and I enjoy almost everything that he is in. HBO as well makes a lot of good things that I like, mainly their TV shows. I like Newsroom, Band of Brothers, Ballers, The Sopranos, pretty much all the TV shows they put out, as well as Game of Thrones except for the last season, are extraordinary. So I had a lot of reason to think that this, especially with this concept of a guy brined in pickle juice for 100 years, was going to be very good. Now, in the very beginning of this video, I compared this movie to Yesterday, that movie about a guy that all of a sudden wakes up in a world where nobody knows who or remembers the Beatles except for him. And he goes out and becomes this huge star, and it was a crazy concept, but explored very, very minimalistically. Everybody saw that movie and wished they'd explore more concepts of what the world would be like if there was no more Beatles. I relate this movie a lot to that. I wanted them to explore the concept more of this guy brined in pickle juice, which is a really lame way to accidentally transport 100 years in the future. But the only funny part in this movie is how they explain it away, which is basically the scientists saying something very sciencey, but you don't actually hear what it says. You have Herschel was just being like, oh yeah, they explained it. And then people are like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. But that was kind of funny. I'm probably explaining it terribly, but it was funny. But I wanted the idea and the concept of him traveling 100 years in the future to be explored more. And that was just kind of brushed under the rug for this weird pickle story of this guy making pickles and selling dirty jars of pickles and just being an absolute awful person, which the awful person part was kind of funny, but never enough to make me laugh. I never really laughed in this movie. In a movie that is extremely satirical about a guy brined in pickle juice for 100 years and living, where he, as well as the other main character, are both played by Seth Rogen, one of the funniest guys ever, it should be roll on the floor laughing all the time. But no. I laughed at the scientist thing and the time where he was tasting seltzer water. And that's it. And I've talked a lot about the suspension of disbelief in the past and how that's okay in movies, and especially when it comes to satirical things like this where you're not supposed to buy the concept of it. It's not supposed to make any sense. It's supposed to be for laughs. But if there are no laughs in a movie, then you kind of have to buy the things that they're expecting you to buy, because they're expecting you to laugh and not think about the weirdness of it. But if I'm not laughing, then I'm just thinking about the weirdness of it. So let me get pretty nitpicky for a second, like really nitpicky. This guy sells pickles on the side of the road from cucumbers that he found in the garbage in jars with mold. And people are lining up in droves to buy it. He gets shut down by the health inspector, and then he opens it up again with interns. He gets interns. And then at the very end, when this guy has basically burned all of his bridges because Ben has really made it his life's goal to screw over Herschel's life and make everybody realize that he's an awful person. So he got Herschel to talk bad about women and Christianity. So he basically got drove out of town and then eventually drove out of the United States.
I don't think I'm saying anything controversial when I say everybody know Jesus Christ's mother was prostitute. And she invents story of Christianity to cover up fact that she prostitute. So, if you believe in Jesus, you're a stupid idiot.
But when they're running through Canada, and try and keep up here because I'm not explaining this very well, because like I said, I remember bits and pieces. When they're running through Canada, Herschel knocks him over the head and pretends to be Ben. And then in the courtroom, the lawyer cannot convince the jury that this is not actually Herschel, it's Ben, which, you know, kind of funny because they're both Seth Rogen. But again, I'm not laughing. So the suspension of disbelief doesn't work if I'm not laughing. The thing that really drives home why this movie is so unsatisfying is that the ending is a huge letdown. In the end, Ben gets sent off to another country. I don't remember which. I'm not going to bother looking it up. And Herschel eventually feels bad and goes there to find him. And they both eventually make their way back to America. Now, the overarching part of the story, the overarching storyline, is that Herschel thinks Ben doesn't care about family. Herschel's making all this money because he thinks Boop Bop is a failure and it's a stupid app. So he's going to sell pickles because when they visit the gravesite of Ben's parents, Herschel's grandkids, I believe, it's just a huge mess. And there's a sign for like a beer company for some sort of race of people he doesn't like. So he wants to get hundreds of thousands of dollars so he can get rid of the sign and clean up the gravesite. And he eventually does. And then he doesn't like feel satisfied.
Malted set. Add for vanilla flavored vodka. Vanilla flavored vodka. Cossacks.
But he eventually goes to get Ben because he gets like a picture and realizes that it's named Boop Bop because he nicknamed his parents Boop and Bop when he was a little kid. It's really lame. There's no emotional payoff whatsoever. I have no emotional investment. I don't think anybody has no emotional investment. I don't think I'm just being a narcissist here. I really wanted to enjoy this movie. I promise you, it was my goal while watching this to find redeemable factors in it. But there are no redeemable factors in this movie. So he goes to get Ben from this other country, which is just a pile of shit. I don't know what the country is. Maybe it's a real country, and they're just really shitting on this country, which you think Seth Rogen would have learned his lesson from, you know, shitting on North Korea and having his movie bomb and being pulled from movie theaters and, you know, all that good stuff that happened to him. But he goes to this other country. They come back, and they're going to sell pickles online together, and that's going to be their legacy. And that's the end of this movie, and that's how it ends. And it's incredibly unsatisfying, and I don't know. This is really a rant. I'm not going into a whole lot of detail and stuff because it's just so fucking forgettable. So forgettable. And if you're thinking about watching it, do not bother. My opinion of Seth Rogen is not like declined because of this, because I don't know why. I just like him. So yeah, don't watch this movie. If you have watched this movie, I'm sorry. Make better decisions next time. I don't know. I watched it too. But anyway, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. check out my other videos.